all of you today, and we have a very special show as we continue to celebrate Women's History Month. Today's guests are three extraordinary women who are trailblazers in the real estate industry, and each of them has over 40 years of experience. They have faced adversity, overcome objections, experienced the highs, the lows in the market, the advent of new technologies. Yeah, I've been there too. And I've actually seen the changing face of the industry. And through it all, they have succeeded and flourished with a positive outlook and knowing that what they do matters and that homeownership is the most important asset of all. My name is Teresa Palacios Smith, and I am Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Home Services of America and HSF affiliates. And as you all know, you've heard me say my family's originally from Colombia, South America. And when we get together with friends, we always ask them, ¿Quieres un cafecito? Which is part of our heritage, which translate, would you like a little cup of coffee? And that's the way we break bread together. We get to know each other because that is how we really celebrate life. So today we are breaking cafecito with some incredible women. And Napoleon Hill said once, some people dream of success while others wake up and work hard at it. And there's no doubt that these women have worked hard as industry icons to achieve the level of success they have achieved. So today I'm excited to introduce to you the ladies that are known as the real estate icons. And I count myself extremely lucky and honored to have the opportunity to know all of you. And I know our audience is looking forward to doing the same. So let me get started by introducing each of you. So Margarita Virani, also known as Maggie, is the CEO and owner of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Virani Realty. And Virani Realty is a family-owned business located in New Hampshire, northern Massachusetts, and southern Maine. She operates 18 offices with over 600 agents and started in the business as a receptionist. I think that is so cool. She has been a licensed broker since 1972 and a subject matter expert in all matters of real estate. She has won numerous awards throughout her career, including the 2019 Outstanding Women in Business. And she is also noted for having a majority of the leadership positions held by women whom she has personally mentored. And I met Maggie 5 years ago, and I still remember when I attended my first Berkshire Hathaway Home Services convention. And Maggie, I was introduced to you by Rosalie Warner. I don't know if you remember that. And Gino Buffari. He was so proud of your Italian heritage and his Italian heritage and the backgrounds that you both have. That's part of his success is seeing other Italians succeed as well. Beth Wolf. Beth Wolf is the CEO and founder of Beth Wolf Realtors Real Living, located in the heart of Houston, Texas. Beth has built one of Houston's premier real estate firms and has been a leader in Houston market for over 40 years. She has also won numerous awards, including most recently Houston's prestigious Better Business Bureau 2020 Pinnacle Award, which recognizes excellence in customer service and community service, which her company is known for. Beth has served in several leadership roles at HAR, including chair and president, and also is the recipient of the prestigious Presidential Citation and the John E. Wolf Citizen Cup for her community service. And I remember meeting you for the first time, Beth, when I went to your beautiful and elegant offices right there in Houston by the Galleria. And I still remember the warm hospitality and welcoming that I received from Ed, your son, you, and your staff. So thank you so much for that. Connie Yoshimura. Connie is the broker and owner of Berkshire Hathaway Alaska Realty, one of my favorite destination bucket list where I want to visit. She is the newest to our organization and the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services family. Connie has over 40 years of experience as well in residential real estate and land development. She and Maggie have that in common. She's entrenched in the community and has developed many multifamily and condominium developments in Anchorage and has offices in Anchorage, Palmer, and even Homer, right? She's also the recipient of numerous awards and honors, including 2019 Realtor of the Year, past chair of the MOA Planning and Zoning Commission, and has been featured, which I thought this was so cool, in Charles Wolfert's Anchorage Centennial book on the history of how the city was built. Again, that's so impressive. And Connie, I had not met you, but I had heard so much about you from Troy Ryerson when he's one of my guys, and he and I were counting. He was like, "Oh, I'm so excited! I met Connie. She's an actor. She's going to be one of our newest affiliates." And he was really proud when he was able to bring you on board. And also, Chris Stewart, I watched you on his show, as well as Trisha Kobos is my accountability partner this month, and she also talks great things about your company. So welcome all of you. I'm so excited to have you on the show. So let's get started. And the first question I always ask everyone is, tell me how you got started in the business, because we all want to know the paths that you take to get in real estate. And I'm going to start with you, Maggie, because your story is very interesting. And then Beth, and then we'll end with Connie.
Well, I was licensed in 72. I can say I probably really became active in 75. I was a social worker, was a little disenfranchised with the welfare system and the way they process things, and decided that I'd work part-time, as you said, as a receptionist at my father's. He had a local real estate office. He was in the restaurant business, sold it, and then got into real estate. And I liked it, and I continued on from there.
Boy, did you continue on to run the company today. And I know that your brother also is very involved. You guys have a family-owned business, which also is a commonality with Beth, because your son is involved in the business. So Beth, tell me a little bit about how you got started. And I love the fact that, how you began, and because of a need to actually make money, right?
Yes. One day I was a stay-at-home mom, and the next day I was the sole supporter of a 4 and a 6-year-old. So I chose real estate in 1974 for the time flexibility and the income potential. Of course, back then, there were not a lot of options for women. And I figured that way, nobody could tell me I couldn't sell one more house, or if the children were ill or I wanted to be a room mother, I could do that as well.
Interesting, because that's actually why I got into the business too, because I wanted to be able to, I coached soccer, and my kids I wanted to be able to do their room mother thing. And I love real estate because it does give you a lot of flexibility. Now you work a lot of hours, right, Connie? It's not something, and Maggie, we all know, but you've done also something very interesting, coming from Iowa originally, right, Connie? And then moving to Anchorage. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into this wonderful career.
Well, 40 years ago, women usually came to Alaska with a guy, which is how I got here. Now the women just get off an airplane or drive up the Alcan by themselves. But my background was as a writer. And so I just wanted to make enough money in real estate so that I could quit work and write poetry, because poets are always poor. And I had been poor, and I didn't want to be poor. But I found the same thing in real estate, that it's a very creative experience. Every buyer is different. Every seller is different. Every property is different. And so it's been a very creative process for me. And in addition to that, there's no glass ceiling in real estate. It all depends on how hard you work and how much you know.
And so true. It really is the opportunity for anyone that really wants to get into it. It is a lot of hard work. So, a lot of people get in it and think they're going to make money right away. And some people are lucky, right? They may have the right sphere of influence, but truly it really does impact based on what you do. Now, I know you all have been in this business, for 40 years. So tell me, how has the business evolutionized? What are the biggest changes that you have seen since you started in the industry? And I mean, I can tell you some that I remember, but let me start with you, Beth, and then I'm going to hit Maggie and Connie.
We had a one-page contract. It was legal paper size, and all it said was buyer, seller, and date, address. We had to write everything else in, and that is from financing conditions to everything. So that was certainly, it has changed. Now we choose from multiple pages with all kinds of amendments and addenda. In addition, back then, in the early 70s were when things started to change for women. But when I first went into real estate, it still was the man's name et ux, and that means as and wife. So the woman did not even have her name on the contract.
What if a woman wanted to buy their own home? Was that, I mean, like, how did that work, Beth? I'm just curious.
For mostly, and of course, this is Texas, and we are a community property state, and so on. So here, if you were married, you had a different responsibility than if you were single. Women who were single could buy property in their own name, but a married woman was not, had to have
the property of the man. It's like pretty much, wow, unbelievable. That's huge. That's huge changes, especially from the one pager to all the addendums that you have now that are part of the contract. How about you, Maggie?
I think there's 4 things that I've seen over the years that have really made a difference. One is the control of the information. When I first started out, all listings were open. There was no MLS. Then it went to exclusive listings with an MLS, and the brokers control the information. And now it's gone to a virtual world or a cloud-based world where you have large aggregates that control the information, and buyers can just log in and get that information. So us as the controllers of information has diminished. Another thing that I think is the technology now. When I started the business way back when, everything was paper and you know, and you had to keep all your accounting on ledgers and so forth. And now everything's cloud-based, so it makes it a lot easier from that perspective. But your communications are 24/7, so you never get away from anything nowadays. Where you did when there wasn't a phone around, you weren't around a phone. And I'd say the last thing is probably the swing from a consumer-centric model to an agent-centric model, and the splits and the things that agents drive today is so completely different from when I started out in the business.
Wow, so true. And
plus market shifts, those have
I
think we've all experienced those.
Absolutely. And I think you're so spot on about, you know, the differences in how even the consumer uses the information, which I think is awesome, in that they're still capable and understanding how complex, and it is it is the biggest investment that we're going to make. So having a subject matter expert understanding all the nuances from that one pager to this huge contract that we have now, understanding the importance of the process and everything that goes in between, and why we are needing to influence, you know, and become those influencers that can really help in that whole consumer steps that they need to take in that purchase. Connie, how about you?
Well, I've always been interested in new construction because it was a way to control inventory in the marketplace, and inventory attracts buyers. So I used to get up at 7:30 in the morning and call builders, because I considered myself as a realtor and a listing agent, just like a plumber or an electrician. And from there, I went into land development, buying land and putting in roads, water, and sewer as an opportunity to bring housing into the community, but also to provide and control, really, quite frankly, the builders that I work with, because traditionally builders don't like realtors because of our fees. And some builders don't make a lot of money nationally. They only make, after they pay for their pickup truck and their gas and all that and their admin, they probably only net about 6 or 7%. So they look at the fees that we charge and saying, well, I can do this myself. So historically, I've always sort of been in the residential land development business as well. But I would agree with Maggie that technology has been really overwhelming For me, I remember when we had a fax machine or we needed a fax machine. And I remember when I had to get an email address. And well, why do I need that? And so now everything is different. And also we've gone from a broker-centric brokerage to agent-centric. And I think that has been probably the most challenging of all of the changes that we as brokers owners have faced, which I think is why we all now need auxiliary services and we all need more diversification as broker owners.
Wow, which is a big area too that has kind of changed, is the diversifying of the businesses because of the opportunities that it brings to your organization. But also, you mentioned, each one of you, about the agent-centric model that you now see, because a lot of times you're taking all the risk as an owner. You're creating and, providing all of the resources that are available. So there's a cost to that. And so keep always that in mind, because it's so hard when you go out your own to have all the phenomenal resources at your fingertips and all the training that is made available and all your experience when you leave a company that, to try to cover that yourself, right? Tell me, what are some of the biggest, and I know Beth and I've talked about the obstacles that you have faced in the business, and how have you overcome them? Because there were obstacles when you first started, and they're still today for some people. So I know Connie and you and I talked about land development and getting financial support, from the banking industry. So let's start with you, Beth, and then Connie, and then Maggie.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say regarding the other situation with agents, that we consider this a partnership. And so therefore, we try to provide services. For instance, as we speak, I have someone with social media meeting with my team, and we have workshops that we give them with ongoing education, which is important today. I think as far as challenges and obstacles, the only constant is change, and we have seen so many changes. So keeping up with the changes, and as you all address technology coming in originally with the computer as it was, the changes that we have seen, really, it may be our lifetime, but it's been a very short period of time. If you look at the past, and all the changes that occurred over many hundreds of years. And then in our lifetimes, we have gone at a much faster pace. In addition to that, women 40 years ago did have a lot more difficulty. And I know when I opened my company in 78, I called it Wolf and Associates. I didn't want anyone to know I was a woman. And it would not be later until the 80s when a magazine called on me and was shocked when I went out as the president and went, "You're a woman." I think too, and this unfortunately seems to be an ongoing theme. Women have been treated differently. Women need to perform better. We have to be better usually to get to the same place that men have gotten to. That was in the past. And just like today, and you're still hearing it with accusations, women are often targets of different kinds of things that are not very appropriate.
Right. And also safety. You mentioned, the safety factor that we all have to learn, when we walk into a home. And I remember that being a big part of, when I was showing property, never walk in first, always have, them walk in and check out the rooms, because then you're blocked in. And, those are things that, does a man have to think about that? I don't think in most cases that's not something that they're prepared to always be on the caution side about. So Connie, how about you? Because we talked about the fact that even still, with your experiences and with all you have, that you come to the table. And this is an also interesting note. Single women today, when they go buy a home, did y'all know that they get charged a percentage higher interest rate than their male counterparts? That's a study they just did, because there's a bigger risk. So Connie, talk about that, because I think that's really interesting too, with your with the financing that you're trying to achieve
Well,
and the challenges you've seen?
I think there still is a lot of prejudice in the banking industry and in borrowing money for various projects. But I think more inherently than that, there is this social implication. So I am a female owner. I am the only owner in my company. I am also a minority because I'm a Hapa. I'm half Japanese. But more importantly than that is I do not hunt. I do not fish. I do not snow machine. So I don't have a lot of the opportunities that men in my market have when they socialize. So I don't duck hunt and I don't ski and I don't do all of those others. I don't go on the iron dog and all that sort of thing. So I have to work a little bit differently as a female in the marketplace than a man does. And so it is important that we do more marketing. I probably have a greater percentage of my budget for marketing than what a male counterpart might do. And if for many years I was a single woman, and there is still prejudice, certainly in that regard as well. And I would say this, I am extremely grateful. I have absolutely nothing to complain about. And especially I think here in Alaska, there's great opportunity because it is a frontier state still. But I do think that prejudice comes not only, and let me be perfectly frank, which is fairly controversial, comes not only from men, but prejudice comes from other women as well, and resentments of success. And so I think you do have to be very careful about that. And you do have to share your knowledge and be willing to share your knowledge with others that are both male and female. But, I have experienced prejudice in my own company. So I think that's pretty interesting, really. So you just have to be careful and be aware. You have to have a lot of what I would call, which was very popular a few years ago, you have to have a lot of emotional intelligence. You have to be able to walk around your office and know who's happy and who's not happy, who needs help, who may be having a family problem and issue and all of that sort of thing. So it is more work. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. I think all three of us would probably agree. If you're going to be a female and you're going to live in this world, in the business world, you do have to come to work earlier, you do have to stay later, and you have to work harder, and you have to have more knowledge.
Connie, I mean, Maggie, how about you add on to some of that? Because you've talked about.
Well, as I had mentioned when we spoke before, I grew up with a father who was an Italian father who came from Italy, saw the opportunity in the United States where not only could men work, but women could work. He didn't have any sons at that particular juncture, so he was thrilled with the fact that we could go out and do all men's work and all women's work. So I grew up with an expectation that I just did whatever it was that you needed to do. And when I got into the real estate business, he treated me the same way he would treat anybody in the office. And what I did find, though, is it was mainly a male-dominated profession when I got into it. And they didn't suffer fools easily. So as Beth said, you needed to know what you were talking about when you were working with these folks. And as long as you did, I never really experienced a whole lot of difficulty moving up in the profession.
Which is really, and I think because you had that backing from the very beginning with your father, which a lot of women don't always have, that support and that, elevation. I think that was such a success, Maggie, from your father. And I what a great mentor, what a great person to give you always that confidence. One of the things that, I think is really hard is how do you endure the ups and downs that you've gone through. What advice do you give to others? Because, this past year was very difficult for a lot of people, and it is still today, in that there's still a lot of women who are really managing more than just their role, their job. You see that we typically are, the ones that are the caregivers for the children. We're the ones kind of that are still responsible for making sure that they get to school, that they get their homework done, that they're online. Plus, we have our own full-time jobs as well, right? So what recommendations or advice do you give women on those up and downs, so that they're able to face them, as you had?
I shared actually with my children many years ago because in addition to the fact that I was working, I also had no support at home. And so I told them we often cannot control the events that affect our lives. Our power, if you will, comes in the way in which we react to these events. So I think by determination, staying focused, I know probably for each of us in our markets, and sometimes it works to our advantage, because those who are not survivors often give up. And so it's a time of weeding out, I would say, where the cream of the crop, comes to the top. So I think there's always opportunity. I know in the mid 80s, when we had the equivalent of a depression in Houston with the oil business, my top producer came to me and she said, the Wall Street Journal says Houston is just, in terrible shape, which we knew. Didn't need to read the Wall Street Journal. So I asked her, I said, do you have, yes. Do you have sales? Yes. I said, quit reading the Wall Street Journal. So I find that a lot of it has to do with your attitude.
Oh, and I think that's so spot on. I know Gino Bafari talks about that all the time, with his attitude of gratitude, and always, looking at the best side and the things that keep you motivated, and just concentrate on those things. So I think that's great advice. How about you, Connie or Maggie?
Well, I guess what I would say is it's a little bit more personal, because I think as real estate brokers and realtors, you can buy and sell real estate regardless of what the market is, because there's always opportunity. But on a more personal note, during the late 1980s crash, when a lot of the brokers and top producers were, addicted to various substances and all that sort of thing, and took out their market issues, on a more personal level, I guess my one advice is get on your treadmill. And I do that today, although now it's probably my bike because I've got a bad knee. But really, I think exercise, you cannot be depressed if you exercise, if you get up in the morning and exercise. And of course, I have always struggled with obesity, and it's been a real challenge for me. But I have found exercise to be one of the greatest rewards and the great equalizer for me, at least, regardless of what the market.
Wow, meds, right on Gino's, topic. How about you, Maggie?
I would have to say the biggest accomplishment when I was dealing with hard times was to get rid of the guilt, because you're trying to manage a family, you're trying to run a business, you're trying to do all of these particular things, and you're worried because you're not a good enough mother. You're not able to be there when they need you. And one day I just said, I can't do this anymore. I can't feel bad because I'm not at every soccer game or football game or whatever. And I just have to decide what are the priorities in your life at this particular point, and how do these affect the family? And that was my come to Jesus day, I guess. Just said, I can't do it anymore. I can't keep this guilt around. I have to work these hours to be able to support and to do the business. And I raised two wonderful kids that turned out fine, even though they didn't see me much when they were little.
Well, what great advice, because I think there is so much guilt, especially for Latino families and, my immigrant families who were taught differently. So thank you for that. Is that guilt is always there. But one thing you just touched on that I think we all need to really think about is the legacies that we are leaving for our children, that, and all of you have developed land, have, talk about wealth, right? And prosperity, and how you can actually leave and provide support for the community and give back, because I think that's really important. And so Maggie and Connie, you both are land developers, and you believe in also making sure you're investing, right? So talk about wealth creation and how that can also help women who really, are starting to do that investment or thinking about it, and why that's important as well. And so I'm going to start with you, Connie.
Well, I think women, female realtors have a real advantage because they understand the market. And you have to build to the market. And so your advice to builders is extremely important. I tell everyone, I don't know anything about pipes and water and sewer extensions. I only know enough of what I have to pay for them and that sort of thing. But the real advantage that I have in the marketplace as a residential land developer, and I think as any realtor, male or female, has, they know what buyers want in the marketplace. And I have to tell you, I don't think that builders, unless they go out and hire a PR firm or a research firm, really have that knowledge. And so you have a tremendous amount of knowledge to share with what buyers are looking for in the marketplace. And you can capitalize on that knowledge by creating communities that will serve them. And, let's just be perfectly frank. A lot of people think real estate brokers are takers, because of the commission schedule and all that sort of thing. But if you also become a land developer, you are creating something, and you are providing a community need, and you are contributing to home ownership and the American dream. And so the perception that you have in the marketplace is quite a bit different than simply as, a real estate broker, especially in today's world where we have so many virtual brokers. I mean, I still have a brick and mortar office. And I think it's important when someone is making the most important financial decision in their lives for many people, that they can sit down and do it in a professional environment. It shouldn't be done in their home that they're thinking about selling. It certainly shouldn't be done at Starbucks. It should be done in a professional environment.
I love that. I love that. Maggie?
Well, I do land development as well, but it's a high risk business. So what I would tell people that are in this business that are starting out, to start out small, take little bites, see if you can deal with the risk, because sometimes you make a lot of money, sometimes you lose a lot of money, and you've got to be able to handle that. So do what you know. I always say I can jump and stand on it, roll on it, and I know I'll still have it later on in life. But take little bites. And I would also say don't fall into the trap of, and I've seen it, and I'm sure you girls have seen it too, that where they finance everything so that when the market shifts or the price range shifts, everything is lost. So my father used to say, own your home. At least if everything else goes south, you've got a place to stay. But I would say take little bites. It's a high risk profession, and work it from that perspective.
And that is the best advice, because I know for when 2008 recession hit, there were so many people that were just over, spent and lost everything because they would finance against the finance. And you still see that.
We made a lot of money selling REO listings.
Absolutely, right? And HUD homes and all that, and all because people overspent. They just, live within your means, and make sure that you have your home and don't finance it away, because that is really a great, advice, to have that place where you can live. Beth, how about you?
Well, another form of investing, I have not gotten into land development, though I must tell you many times I have regretted not trying it. And I would certainly agree with Connie. We find all the time builders come to us with products that they want us to sell, and we just wish they'd talk to us while they were making the plans, And so I do think we have the intuition basically through experience of what people want and tweaks we could do. But one thing that I have done, which is not on as big a scale, obviously, is by rental property. And I think that's something most of us can do, and it can become an excellent stream. I had a friend whose son couldn't find any thing that he wanted to do, and she's a designer, so they had the money to buy some property, and I thought this could be beautiful. She could remodel and he could be the manager, and so on and so forth, and build up an income. So we had dinner, and once I presented the program, he looked at me, he says, "Oh, I'm going to become a realtor and come work with you." Well, that didn't work out either, but I will just say that that buying property for rental purposes can, and I think there's a lot of opportunity now, because as we all know, with the forbearance and everything else, there are going to be a lot of people in trouble. So I would look for opportunities this coming year.
And those opportunities, again, long term, because you can't flip, and you got to understand, with Maggie's point, don't finance your home, with an equity line to invest, in properties. Do it the smart way. Take little chunks and bites at a time, so that you're able to make sure that you always stay above water.
I have a lot of associates that come to me and say, well, how can a buyer be comfortable in this market? Our market is appreciating extremely quickly. And I always say, well, they invest in stock. Mm-hmm. At least a house you can sit in, you can whatever, and they don't have any. They're not risk adverse to investing in stock.
And keep it. It's going to come up. It's certainly. We went through lows,
right?
So I totally agree. It's the best investment. Obviously, Warren Buffett believes that. And we're all part of companies that are, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services family. So what advice do you give in the point of women, what challenges you think they're going to be facing, as if you had a little mirror that you can look, or a glass ball of the future that they might need to be aware of, any of you, as far as what are the biggest challenges you think?
I'm concerned that some of the younger women, and I've really been enjoying this. I have several women just starting out that I'm trying to help mentor. And when we start talking, we all have this experience, and we've been there, and we know it was only the early 70s when women started getting a lot of rights. And these younger people really do not understand where we came from. They're starting here. And I think that understanding what has happened, the transition from women all being virtually stay-at-home moms to having the opportunity in all fields today, is something that cannot be taken for granted. And I think that they need to, I know I tried to issue the challenge to them to continue to get more women on boards, to make funding. I know there are a lot of initiatives right now where women are forming groups to invest in other women. So I think that there's so many things that can be done. And I would say being complacent, either with where we are, and then the greater concern with COVID and all, where so many women, I understand a good number of women have had to give up their jobs to stay at home and teach these children. So we've got a lot of things to contend with, and I think those would be some of them.
Great point. Great point. Connie?
Well, I think education is really so important, and whether it's learning by experience, taking a young realtor and teaching them that they have to go out and look at least 10 houses every week, or just through a more formal process for education. We've just promoted our receptionist to come in to work as part of our management team. And I have to tell you how disappointing it has been, the interviewing process, to try to replace that position. I think there are many young women who don't know how to, respond in an interview. They don't know what business casual is. They can't type, really. And, they have sometimes lack of knowledge as far as, grammar, business etiquette, and all that sort of thing. So I think those are really challenges in our society as whole. And maybe it's only in Alaska, but we certainly do have hiring challenges now. And so the best advice I can give to these young women is to continue to educate yourself, whether it's taking an online course or going back to college and really learning. The business world is different than the social worker world, which I was in for a few months and that sort of thing. So you really do, if you want to have a six-figure income, you really have to work a lot more than 40 hours a week in today's world to accomplish that. And I think that you just need to continue to educate and learn how to dress in an appropriate business-like manner, because we're certainly challenged in as far as our experiences are concerned.
Interesting. Very great point. I see that too. I see that too. How about you, Maggie?
Well, I see both of their points. I also see that in my experience in the real estate industry today, women should be able to succeed just as easily as men succeed. I think that generation that's coming up is somewhat complacent, as you said, and don't really want to get out and interact. They're looking for leads that are fed to them over the internet, and that's how they think they're going to make their income. And the leads that they get over the internet, naturally, they want the highest split you could possibly get, but they don't have the drive, I think, that some of the women that started back 40 years ago had, because you needed to have it to be able to be a success. And you see some stars that are standing out, but for the most part, a lot of them, I think, are coddled nowadays.
Well, you see that lack of drive, number one. You also see that the fact that and I think, Beth, you hit it on, there are a lot of steps and roads that were taken by individuals in the past to help us achieve the level that we're in today, in every aspect of business. And so always respect that, but more importantly, learn that on the phone is not the way you do business. 24/7, you really have to interact with people. You really have to look them in the eye. You have to have conversations. You have to have the ability. And of course, you're going to be working with millennials. You're going to be working with young buyers as well, who really do prefer texting. But when it comes to the business of real estate, it is a business, and it is an investment, and it is a life investment. So really being able to communicate that is so critical, right? And so I think that certainly bodes well with what all of you have said, and learning those lessons, right, that are really critical. All right, we are almost out of time. I've had so much fun. I can't believe it. So as we wrap, one thing we always talk about is, what is your, something that has hit you, a favorite book, a favorite quote, something that resonates with you that you can leave with our audience with. And Maggie, I'll start with you, and then Connie, and then Beth.
I always said that the word persistence is what helped me succeed. I would try and try and try and try, and a lot of people give up after one or two misses. But I'd say the most important characteristics you need to succeed in business are resilience, which these women certainly have, determination, and persistence.
That is so spot on. And, even just keep doing it, even you fail, because everyone who's ever succeeded has failed 100 times before they actually got it right. So I think I love that. How about you, Connie?
Well, I remember a realtor that came to me when I started out in my real estate career, and he said, Connie, here's a book. I want you to read it. And I looked at it, and it was the Dale Carnegie book on how to win friends and influence people. And I said, I'm not going to read that book. You know, I have a college education. I have a master's degree. I don't need to read that silly little book on how to win friends and influence people. But eventually I picked it up. And the one thing that I learned was that, you know, you have to be a good listener. You have to be a good listener. You have to understand, you have to acknowledge someone's objections, and then you can go on from there. And I think that that's so important that even today I give that book to young realtors, and I say, you just need to be a good listener. And you do have to have knowledge, obviously, but it is all about treating people with respect and paying attention. And I tell them, you know, there are some verbs you cannot use. You cannot use, I think, I believe, I love, I feel, because then someone can respond to you. Well, I think, I believe, I love, I feel, and you're in a no-win situation. So you just have to be a good listener and learn how to talk in a professional but friendly manner.
One of my favorite books all time. I read it in high school. And I think Gino, that's one of his favorite books too, and Chris and Alan Dalton. It is a treasured book. There are top 10, there are 10, that is one of the top. So I think great advice. A lot of people don't know it's available on Amazon. They can read it on Audible. There's even modern versions of it. So there is certainly one of those that is never, ever. It's just one of those go-to books that you're really going to learn a lot from. How about you, Beth?
I find in residential real estate that, as we all know, there's an emotional component. We are working with people at moving alone is high on the stress level, but it's always compounded by another stress factor, such as marriage, divorce, new job, lost job, whatever it may be. So I try to remember that it's helping people. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, it's one of the most beautiful compensations of this life that no one can help another without helping oneself.
Oh, I love that quote. That's beautiful. And I just, thank you so much, each of you, for participating today, sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your experiences with our audience, and I really enjoyed our little cafecito together. There's a quote that I want to share that I think captures you and what I see that you've accomplished as well. You have defined success on your own terms, achieved it by your own rules, and built a life that you're all proud to live. And I love that because that's by Anne Sweeney, who's the president of Walt Disney. And that quote to me resonates with what I've seen in each of you and how you've actually really inspired me and others as well. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and for watching, everyone out there. Please join us 2 weeks from today, where we're going to be, that's March 31st, we're going to be talking to the go-getters. And these 3 women who have started different things and different foundations and different organizations that we'll be focusing on as we end Women's History Month. And those women include Wendy Allen, who's Senior Vice President with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Georgia Properties. She has opened a new office in a very historic part of Atlanta in College Park. We've got Kathy Jackson, VP of Talent Development for Intero Real Estate, and she's actually started very different organizations that empower women. And she's constantly learning and doing initiatives that include diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And then Melissa Kendall, for all of you, you may have known Melissa in the past. She used to work with us at HSF, and now she's started her own company. She's the founder and CEO of Little Word Studio. So she's gone out, taken that chance to begin her own company. So exciting. Thank you all. Don't forget to join our Facebook page, join our YouTube channel, and also remember to bring other women up the ladder as you climb to the top. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again, and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.